Welcome to Mishna study Masechet Shabbat. Over here, this Masechet, they're going to speak about really so much of Shabbat, as the Torah teaches us many, laws, or really not so many laws. The Torah Shabbat here really goes into so many of them. The Pesukim really speak about Shabbat is, something where you're not allowed to do any melacha, right? Sheshet yamim ta'avod ve'asita kol melachtecha v'yom ha'shvi'i Shabbat l'Adonai Elohecha lo ta'aseh kol melacha, right? Pesukim appear in Shemot and Devarim, and we're not allowed to do melacha on Shabbat. What is melacha? And the melacha, the work that we're not allowed to do, is really tied into the laws of the Mishkan. Whatever we weren't allowed to do in preparation of the Mishkan and building the Mishkan, right? So this could include, making certain, breads and building it, and even some of the, the coverings and the clothing for the Kohanim and the hide that was used to cover the Mishkan. All these things that we would do to prepare in the building of the Mishkan, that's what Hashem told us to rest from. And all these melachot, right, all these actions that we would go ahead and do in the Midbar, that's what we need to refrain from on doing on Shabbat. And our Masechet is going to speak about a lot of this. The Mishnah speaks about the melachot. It's actually going to appear in the 7th perek of Masechet Shabbat. Until we get there, we're going to speak much of the first perek. Is going to be a lot of gezerot, actually, Chachamim they speak about, and a lot of carrying. Right, the laws of carrying from one reshut to another reshut rabim, reshut yachid, and I want to give a quick introduction to that, as Rambam does in his introduction to Masechet Shabbat, and then we'll jump into the Mishnayot themselves. So we need to know that there are 4 types of reshuyot, 4 domains when it comes to the laws of Shabbat. Right, there's the reshut rabim, a public domain, reshut yachid, which is a private domain, and 2 lesser known. That is the karmelit, which is somewhere in between, and the makom petur. Now we're going to explain what all these are. We'll jump into each one of them. The Reshut Rabim is a place where everyone travels. Now, it's important, there are certain conditions that a Reshut Rabim needs to meet, and that is, it cannot have a roof, for example, right? It needs to be at least 16 amma wide, right? That's about 24 feet wide, right? That street, right? Or that highway needs to be, or more, at least that, right? There can't be any gates to it, right? It can't be within the walls of a city, right? Because if it's in the walls of the city, right, and the city has doors and locks, right, then it wouldn't be considered Reshut Rabim. What's considered a Reshut Rabim? Like a midbar, like a desert. Right? It's interesting how Rambam says like a desert, because Rashi actually does not understand that. There's a Gemara, and Rashi understands the exact opposite. Rabbeinu Abraham ben Rambam actually has a teshuvah, and he speaks about this, and he's saying Rambam actually learned the Gemara where the midbar, in the times when Bnei Israel were there, that's when it was not considered a Reshut Rabim, because Bnei Israel were living there. But today's days, a desert is considered a place where anyone can travel, and that's a Reshut Rabim according to Rambam. Right, and other areas, or a highway, right, that's really open on both ends, that's connecting, from one city to the next, right, that's considered a Reshut Rabim. Now, what's the Reshut Yachid? A private domain. Okay, that's a place where people don't travel, right? It's not open to the public. Now, what's important? What is this Reshut Yachid, this private domain need? So it needs to be at least 10 tvachim high. Right, and we'll see in a moment what does that mean. Let's say a hilltop, you have a plateau with 10 tvachim high, and it's 4 amot by 4 tvachim by 4 tvachim wide. Okay, that's enough. That's enough of a measurement. Right, 4 tvachim, pretty small. Right, it's the tefach is about 4 inches. You're talking about 16 inches by 16 inches, and that's considered a, or more, right? Or more than that, that's considered a Reshut Yachid. Now, if there's less than 3 sides, then it's not considered a Reshut Yachid anymore, right? And, this could be, the Reshut Yachid could be on a, could be a plateau that's 10 tvachim high, it could be a ditch that goes 10 tvachim deep, or it could be a gate that goes around an area, right? That the gate is 10 tvachim high. All these things, a house, right? That's considered a Reshut Hayachid, right? And it needs to be, as we mentioned, this gate needs to has to go around all 4 sides, like our homes, like our courtyards, right? All these considered a Reshut Yachid. Again, but important that it needs to have 4 tvachim, arba'a al arba'a tvachim, 4 by 4 tvachim. Okay, those are the 2 more common. That's the Reshut Rabim and Reshut Yachid. What's the karmelit? Karmelit literally means ke'armelit, right? Like an almana, right? Like a widow, meaning it doesn't have the actual all the the necessary qualities of a Reshut Rabim, and it doesn't have the qualities of Reshut Yachid. It's somewhere in between, right? So what is this exactly? Okay, so let's say it has four tvachim wide, right? 4 tvachim by 4 tvachim. Okay, good. And it's at least 3 tvachim off the ground, right? If it's less than 3 tvachim off the ground, this is a tefach, right? If there's less than 3 tvachim off the ground, then we're going to consider that as part of the ground. That's going to be considered flush, right? That's kilavud, right? It's as if it's not there. And if it has to be at least 3 tvachim off the ground for it to be considered its own domain, up until 10 tvachim. Right? So once it is 10 tvachim, it's a Reshut HaYachid, right? Less than 3 is considered Reshut HaRabim. Over here, it's that in-between stage, between 3 and 10. Right? Between 3 and 10, if there's 4 tvachim by 4 tvachim wide, then it's considered this Karmelit. Right? Just one exclusion, and that says unless it's exactly 9 tvachim. If it's exactly 9 tvachim, then even the Rabbim use it. Right? The Rabbim mekatfim bo, right? And then it's considered already to shoot hayachid, right? Because everyone would use something like that. If you have a stop that's exactly 9 tefachim, exactly 36 inches high, right? If you have that, right, it's exactly that number, then people will use it to just straighten out their knapsack or whatever it is as they're walking, and that's considered a reshut yachid. Okay, now we explained all those. Those are the first 3. We have one last one that's called the makom petur. Makom petur, right, is something, again, it's at least 3 tefachim off the ground, right? But it's less than 4 tvachim by 4 tvachim wide, right? So let's say a little pole, right? A pole in a Reshut HaRabim. Okay, a little pole, it's I don't know, it's tefach, 2 tvachim, it's not 4 tvachim wide, right? And it just goes as high as you want, it goes up to the sky, right? And you put something on there, that's considered a makom petur. Now, the makom petur, again, it doesn't matter if it's some going up or if it's a ditch going down, right? If it's less than 4 tvachim by 4 tvachim, then it's considered this makom petur. Now, what are the laws when it comes to these 4 reshuyot? Okay, if a person picks something up in a Reshut HaRabim and puts it down in a Reshut Yachid, he carries from one domain to another domain, right? Or those two, right? Reshut Yachid to Reshut HaRabim, or vice versa, right? Between those two, then he's going to be hayav, right? What does that mean? On Shabbat, if he does so and he was warned, he's hayav skila. If he did it on purpose. If he did it by mistake, he's chayav hatat. Right? That's if he carries from Reshut Rabim to Reshut Yachid. What if he carries to a Karmelit? Right? This in-between stage, which doesn't have the qualities of a Reshut Rabim, it doesn't have the qualities of Reshut Yachid, somewhere in between. So over here, you're not allowed to do so. Midirabanan. If a person does so, he gets makat mardut, right? He gets lastage for rebelling, but it's not a deoraita, right? He doesn't have to bring a korban hatat if he violates it. Now the makom petur, that was the 4th category that we brought. We are allowed to carry from there to a reshut yachid or from there to a reshut harim nachat tahila. You are allowed to do so. If you had this pole, right, and you want to just take something from there and put it down in back into the Reshut Yachid, you are allowed to do so, right? That's called the makom petur. And that's just important to know. Now, we speak about, yitziot and achnasot, you like to take something in, carry something out, right? That's really all based on the perspective of the person, right? If a person's, outside, he's taking it out. So he's bringing it to Reshut Rabim. If he's inside, he's bringing it in, right? But he's taking from one Reshut to the next. And we're going to speak about both these cases, hotza'ah and hachnasa. Hotza'ah is going to be related to the Reshut HaRabim, taking it out to the Reshut HaRabim. Hachnasa is going to bring something in to the Reshut HaYachid. Now, anytime we say inside and outside, right, we're going to speak about inside being Reshut HaYachid, outside being Reshut HaRabim. Anytime we say the term hayav in our Masechet, is obligated, is liable. What does that mean? He's liable for sekila if he did it on purpose, or he's liable now to bring a korban hatat if he did it by mistake. And anytime we say, another important term to know in our Masechet, anytime we say patur, right? It's patur. What does that mean? So usually, every time we say patur, it means you patur from death, right? You don't get the death penalty, right? But you still get, lashes if you did it on purpose, right? You're not allowed to do so, but if you did so, you're patur. Except for a couple of cases, I think it's 3 cases, that come up in our Masechet, and that will be when a time when it says patur, and it'll be patur umutar, patur and allowed. So but that's going to be really the the yotzei min haklal, right? Really the non-normal, and we'll point it out as we get to each of them. So that's enough. That's all really for our introduction. I'll just point out also the melachot, right? We're going to get to all the melachot in Shabbat. They really fit into different categories. You'll see from the 1 until 1 until 11 is really focused on the laws of all the melachot that lead up to baking, right? So planting, sowing the field, and plowing and reaping, gathering, threshing, winnowing, sorting it out, grinding, sifting, kneading the dough, baking it, right? All that's in the melachot of baking, right? That's you're leading up to. Then you see moving into, doing things for the dyeing, right? So you're going to go ahead and shear the wool. You're going to whiten the wool, comb it, dye it, spin it, stretch those threads, make a weaving loom, actually weaving, removing some of the threads, tying a knot, untying a knot, right? Sewing, tearing something, right? So all these things are going to be the process of making clothing, right? Or making garments, right? Making fabric, right, for the Mishkan. And then you'll move into, and the next category we'll talk about really getting, we're just talking about, the hide itself, right? We know also some of the covers of the Mishkan were made from leather. Right? So what do you have to do? Hunting, right? You start to, trap an animal, slaughter it, remove the skin, tan it, salt it. You have to smooth it out, cut it, right? So cut off, the hairs from it. So all these things that come into working the hide itself, and then you can see we're going back into the building of the Mishkan. So you're writing, right? So you could actually put the the beams together, so everything lines up. Erasing, building, demolishing, extinguishing a fire, kindling a fire, actually striking the final blow, right? That really speaks about the actual building itself. And then you move on to the last category, which is more simushu the shoot, which is transferring from one domain to the next. And that's going to be the discussion of our first Mishnah, and we'll jump into that momentarily.